I have Jon Brooks, the co-host, who you've all seen before. Thank you so much, Jon, for joining me again. We're going to talk about a cool topic today, strength finders, finding your one thing, finding activities that you can define and mold to your strengths that add energy, do not suck energy from you, and translate to business, and maximizing your time that you use inside your business. So, Jon, how important is finding your strengths and adapting your business activities to those strengths?
Yeah. So, like we talked on the last call that we did in the podcast that we did, in real estate, there's agents coming in because there's no barrier to entry. It's very little. It's like $2,000 in a week or two of courses. You can come in and you're a real estate agent and you have the right to manage someone's largest financial transaction. That means that people are coming in from all different walks of life, right? Everyone has different personality types. Everyone has different experiences, and everybody has had success in different things. And so the idea behind this is, well, using what has worked in the past, let's investigate that to see if you can find the right niche. Because again, the more focused you can get, the more success you're going to have. Okay. I think there's a misconception out there. Well, I'm going to do 10 different lead generation sources. I'm going to do everything. No top team around the country does everything. Okay. You can't be a specialist at everything. Like choose one thing and maximize it and become the best at it. And that one thing should be from your strengths. And from your strengths, what I mean by that is, you're working from your strengths when you have ease, excellence, and enjoyment. Those are the 3 E's: ease, excellence, and enjoyment. It comes easy for you to do. You're very good at it. You naturally gravitate towards it, for example, and you enjoy it. That's a huge thing. So if you have ease and excellence, but you don't enjoy it, you're not going to do it consistently. And in real estate, it's all about consistency. And it's not just real estate, it's everything in life. If you stay consistent, like you can't go to the gym and work out one time and get like massive results. It's not going to happen, right? So you want to make sure that you're doing something that is absolutely operating from your strengths. And that is a really good place to start when you are starting your business plan.
Okay, lot to unpack. So you talk about being focused. But to be focused, you have to figure out on what to focus on. So let's revisit that and becoming a specialist in that thing. So finding ease, excellence, and enjoyment, you have to start by assessing your strengths. So how do you go about finding that? If you're an agent entering this business, how do you go about finding your strength?
Yeah, I mean, to be honest with you, if you really want to do the business the right way, in the focused way, in the way that is thoughtful, that will get you results, you get a coach. So there's strength coaches out there. It's called Strength Finders by Gallup. You can take an assessment that identifies your top 5 strengths. It's a really cool thing. I know at Momentum, they hire in strength coaches for their agents. They can sign up for a class to go through like, well, what are the nuances of those strengths, right? Because it could be the same strength for me and you, but we could do it differently or think about it differently. That would cause there to be a different result in the real world. So you need to know like, hey, here's the things that I'm really good at naturally from my personality. And here's the things that I'm not so good at, right? So I can give you an example, like my wife, Brittany, she's an excellent buyer agent. She's patient, she's diligent, she's a high achiever. So she wants to get the result. And she's a woo. So she likes to get the result and see the result. I do not have those same strengths as her. I am very impatient. I'm an activator. I like to get started on projects very quickly. I don't have no problem telling people what they need to hear to their face with total disregard to how they feel about it. I'm better off as a listing agent, right? Like telling a seller like, hey, your house is not going to sell for that. Here's the data to back it up. Brittany in that conversation, she's much more emotionally intelligent. She might not be as like rip off the Band-Aid as me and won't get the same results. So she's more fit for a buyer agent role. My personality type is more fit for a listing agent role. And the way you help identify that is going through a strengths assessment and being able to figure out like, where should I be sitting? If you think about like a soccer team or a football team, what position on the field are you going to take? Right? You can have massive success in any of those positions, but like find the one that you're going to be most successful in and that you enjoy the most. Like for soccer, I played soccer. I was left midfield. All right. I'm fine with running up and doing all the passing and all that kind of stuff. And maybe we group in front of the goal, but like, I wouldn't be a striker or I wouldn't be a defender. This is a totally different mindset in a different position. So you need to find your strengths and you need to find the position where you're going to maximize.
So I like that analogy. And what came to my mind is like, I'm picturing Tom Brady as a receiver, right? And to think that, all of a sudden he'd be good at being the quarterback and the receiver and a left tackle at the same time. So that's what we're looking at here is like when he became the best person at his position in history, like I'm sure he tried a couple other things and figured out like, oh, I'm a good passer. I made it maybe not be great at running, but like this analogy fits though. So I appreciate you bringing that up. So like, how do you find what position you're good at? You have to find your strengths. So
yeah.
In the show notes, in the comments, I'm going to link that strength assessment that you can go take that yourself and find your strength. So that's value right there. So that's awesome.
Yeah. So hang on to that thought real quick, because I have another analogy for you is don't judge a fish's ability to climb a tree. Like don't judge a fish by its ability to climb a tree. Like it's a fish. So like we have agents who joined the brokerage that didn't have success where they were before. And then you do the strengths assessment. You're like, well, that's why. Right? You're like, you weren't working from your strengths, and automatically you get them in a role. You put them in a different position on the field and they're in a role and they have massive success. Well, of course, it's a no-brainer. You don't put the shortest person on the court for basketball as the center to get rebounds. Like, don't do that. But like, you need to have the ability to be like, I am not that type of player. I'm that type of player. And a lot of people, they make the mistake of comparing themselves to other people and thinking that they're the same. And like, then they start to blame themselves. Well, I need to be that. I need to be that. No, you need to be the best version of you. You don't need to be somebody else. And that's a big misconception. And we do way too much comparing around here. I didn't judge Brittany for not being confrontational. We're just like, that's the role. Right? Like that's where you should be. And guess what? She loves it.
Yeah.
And because she loves it, she's amazing at it. Yeah. I can't work with buyers. I don't have the patience. If I did that, I would hate it. And I would be a terrible buyer agent.
So what happens? So speaking when you don't have the 3 E's, we talked in the last episode about 87% of agents fail or burn out in their first 5 years. Is that right?
Yeah, 87% their first 2 years don't make it by, and it's some crazy statistic like 67% of the public doesn't trust a real estate agent, and I don't blame them.
Like used car salesmen,
Well, they don't know. Most of them, there's like 10% of agents out there doing 90% of the business. So there's only like out of 10 agents, one of them will probably be decent.
Yeah. So do you think a lot of it is because they're not doing the right activities that don't fit their strengths? Do you think that's the root cause, or is there something else that leads to that too?
The root cause of everything, dude. And I wish they had taught this in high school. I wish I knew my personality before I went to college, man. I could have saved myself a lot of headaches. And then when you learn your strengths, you become more comfortable with who you are and you understand how you are internally wired. And you're like, oh, I'm not a jerk. That's just like, I've been like that since I was a kid. Like that is not going to change. Like that's just a personality type. And now that we have a daughter and we can see her personality type, we're like, oh, like this might be her strength is like this. And it's not necessarily a weakness. It can be a strength. It just depends on the situation that you're in. And you need to have the awareness to be like, okay, like this is where we should pull Jon in to hammer this problem out. We should pull Britt in. Like, is this an emotionally intelligent conversation? This person, is this a conversation that the person's not going to hear what they need to hear, but they need the accountability, bring Jon in, right? So it's different. You need to figure out who's going to do what and who's going to have which conversations.
Yeah. So you talk about it not necessarily being a weakness, but it doesn't play in that situation. So it's not gonna benefit your personality type is not going to benefit that type of situation. So that's powerful. And rather than counting that as a loss, being understanding of yourself and saying like, I'm not going to be good in this situation, and let me find you someone who will be.
Yeah, and I have an example with this. Like, if you talk, like, you ever hear of Jack Ma, the guy for Alibaba, like the e-commerce giant? He's like nerd, like not really, you wouldn't expect him to be a great leader, but he's like, I don't have to have the best personality. I just need to find the people who are good at the stuff that I'm bad at. And that's where you start building a team and you start figuring out, how does my personality work with other people? Like momentum didn't just happen to be me, you, Britt have all different personality types, but we're very good at the things that we do specifically. Us individually probably couldn't do it, right? So you need to identify, like a lot of agents come and we do business planning with them and they don't know their numbers. Well, guess what? I'm a numbers person. I'm the right person to partner with. Like if you are not making the profit and you are not maximizing what you need to do, I'm a great partner for you. If you're already there and you need like scripts for buyers to cut your showings in half, Brittany, right? Like it's just different.
So at Momentum, we've, like you said, combined us three into this pie that we think offers just about everything you could need for an agent coming in, depending on what your strength is.
If they ask the questions, a lot of agents, what they end up doing is they ask like 3 questions that are bad questions and they don't understand. And then they end up going to another brokerage that has way less value or doesn't necessarily, they haven't done the math, right? They just are like, oh, I'm going to do this because my friend's there, or I'm going to do it. It's like, okay, well, is your friend on their way to financial success? How far along are they on that path? You know, what is the validity of the people that you're learning from? And so we come across a lot of people, but that doesn't mean that we're the right fit. And honestly, if an agent's not asking those deep questions, it might not be a good fit at the moment, which is a pretty interesting thing. But in regards to strengths, like that is step 1. Like step 1 is identifying what am I good at, ease, excellence, and enjoyment. What do I like doing? And how am I going to integrate that into my business so I can maximize my performance?
So, okay. So we talked finding your strength is number 1. And the math is another, the math conversation is another episode, which we will have. And if you want to learn more about how to establish validity in a brokerage or really in life, like if you're going to engage with someone, you know, verify their validity. That's our previous episode. Our whole episode is about that. So please consume that. So you found your strength. So if I'm a real estate agent, I found my strength. I know what my strengths are. What lead generation lever, how do I decide what lead gen lever I pull to, like, where do I start from there?
Yeah. I mean, there's 21 different lead generation levers. The first thing is figure out what your strengths are, look at them, draw them out on a whiteboard and be like, here's my strengths. Here's the 21 different lead gen levers. Circle the ones that work with your strength. Like maybe even do a hypothetical situation, be like, here's a friend's strength and here's the 21 lead gen levers. And if you had a team, where would you put them? And then you start coaching yourself, right? Take yourself out of your own mental body and just be like, okay, like if I was going to coach a friend to do this, what would it look like? And then you pick. I mean, nobody can decide for you, and you can experiment and figure out, okay, what's going to work and what's not going to work. And you don't do too many. Like pick 3 lead gen levers. You know, don't pick 10, don't pick 5. Do 3 to start, maybe even 2, and really focus on 1. And once you've maximized 1 and everything that you could possibly do, then you've earned the right to go on to the next one. Because again, you want to maximize it to like, if you do all 3 lead gen levers, like on an average level, it's probably not going to work.
Mm-hmm. So how long do you spend in a lead gen activity before you either deem it successful or not? Is it based on the numbers or the reaction you're seeing? How long, like, should I try it for 1 day and get frustrated and quit? Like how do I, if I'm someone who's engaging in this activity, how do I evaluate it in a time frame and say, okay, this is worth it and this is not?
By the way, that's a solid question. And it's more nuanced than it might seem because each lead gen lever has different lead times. And what I mean by that is the time that the activity takes place and when you might get a result. So if like you're farming a neighborhood, you might not see a result for 4 to 5 months. And then at the end of the year, you might get 10 listings, right? Or you can't just farm it by like sending out mailers. You need to door knock it. You need to circle call it. You need to do open houses in it. Like there's a whole strategy around it. And each one of those, like you could do an open house strategy and get like 10 buyers come in through that open house and collect 2 of them, right? And convert them right there. Like that's instant results. So each lead gen lever has different time frames in which it will be successful. So that's that's like the third conversation. Like 1 is like, what are your strengths? Number 2, based on your strengths, what lead gen levers are you going to do? And then number 3 is are you thinking that you're going to see those commission dollars come in? Mm-hmm. And are you prepared for that financially?
So really, then it depends on the lead time. That would be how you'd make that decision. Because you wouldn't expect, like you said, farming a neighborhood 3 days in, you're like, this is not working. Screw this. That
No,
would be realistic. Okay. So then
you give yourself 6 to 8 months, man.
yeah. So if I'm an agent, so that's helpful to know. If I'm an agent trying to decide if something is working, then I have to be aware of how long it takes to work before I can truly assess. Yes. Got it. Awesome. So then, man, talking about ease, excellence, and enjoyment. So if you're an agent right now that's burnt out, maybe you know your strengths, maybe you're not. How do you recharge? Because I've talked to people who are in this situation. We had an agent join us who is a mentee right now. She called me and she said, listen, I'm desperate. I've been an agent for a long time. I've been doing all these things. I've been so busy. She's doing all these activities. And she said, everybody keeps telling me what to do. And I'm having no success. And I could tell in her voice that she was exhausted. She was on her last leg in this business. And she's had deals fall through. So everything bad was happening to her. And she came to us and was just exhausted. Like, what do I do? Like, what's your advice for someone who's burnt out already? How to recharge and get started? And because if I was her, I'd say, screw this. I'm going to go because at that point you have to get another job, right? You have to start making money. How do you recharge and get back into the business and do it right?
I mean, the same conversation that we had last week, find people who are valid, ask them advice. If I was going to work with somebody like that, as a coach or something like that, I would be asking them a ton of questions. I would be asking them for their daily schedule of what they're doing. Do they like what they're doing on the daily schedule? What does their lead generation habits look like? There would be a lot of uncovering that I would need a lot of transparency on. What does their personal life look like? Because that rolls over a lot of times into the business. And then be able to, from there, basically collect the field, like the data. It's data collection first. You don't go to the doctor and they just give you a prescription. They ask you questions first. So we need to ask questions and be like, what's your temperature? How's your heart rate? What are you eating? Like what, do you exercise? Do you smoke? Like, do you have any other preconditions? Like those, like you have to do an analysis with them. You have to get the data before you give the prescription. So otherwise it's malpractice, which by the way, most other people do. They just give you advice when not understanding your circumstance, which is why most advice is useless.
Yeah.
Or it's it's going to give you a different result than what you're planning. Like you have to really dig deep to understand what is this person's motivations? What are their goals? What is their current situation? Where are they financially? And then start building a plan around that. And then who is this person as a human being? What are their strengths? What has worked well for them in the past where they have got excited? Because we're trying to replicate that success. And it could not even be in real estate. It could be like, what got you excited in the past in life in general? Well, I like to travel. I like to do that. Okay, well, what if you can make an emotional connection between what you're doing in this job to that, right? And that's where vision boards come from, but they're really not helpful. In my opinion, there's a lot of better ways to do it. I think you can do it, but and it's helpful to have a thinking practice, but it's accountability. That is the main thing. So just doing it and putting it up once a year is not enough.
Yeah. It starts with assessing first, finding the right person that fits what you want to be, and then go after them, and then replicate their activity exactly what you said. So, man, I think that's all we need to talk about that. And again, if you want to find your strengths, I'm going to link that in the show notes in the comments. And I'd be interested to hear what your strengths are as a listener, and if it surprises you. I know when I did the test, it surprised me a little bit, but it also confirmed a lot of things I thought about myself. So it's just helpful to be more self-aware when you're deciding what activities in your life are going to be worth it.
Yeah, and one more comment before we hop off here. It's a really good exercise to do with your spouse or your significant other or other people who work in your team, because you can start to understand how other people operate, not only yourself. And then you can be like, oh, that's why they react that way. Like that's just who they are. And so you can start to build systems or communication channels that are more effective than they would be otherwise, as long as they're open to have those type of conversations. So it can go way deeper than just your real estate business. It can change your whole life.
Yep. I love it. That's what we're all about, changing lives, building a big life. Well, once again, thank you, man, for being on here with me. And until next time.
Yep. Until next time. See ya.